All right, everybody, take two. I apologize for the first stream crapping out. I was having some issues with the audio. There was an echo or whatnot. So I definitely wanted to remedy that before I came on. I'm going to try to fix the lighting here too. It's a little dark, but all right. So what I wanted to do, like I do every Fantasy Football Friday, is for those who are new. And by the way, if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification button if you haven't done so already. Going to go through all of the injury issues around the league and discuss the fallout, because there's some big names that are questionable. Some of them are certainly going to play. Some of them may not. But going to go through all of those key players. Take your questions in the chat. Any start sit questions you might have in the chat. Make sure you post it, because certainly there's a lot of chaos already on the injury front. That's the one thing that stands out to me a little bit, is that there's been a lot of key injuries already in fantasy football. A lot of big names, a lot of running backs, especially are injured or to a varying degrees, and the game is already in chaos and really testing the depth of our teams there. And I don't ever remember this many players being injured this early in the season. Now, I could be wrong, but I think that there's been more than usual. That's just my opinion on it. So, like I do every Friday, we're going to go through the injury report, because Friday is the last chance for a player, unless they're playing on Monday, to get a practice in. If they have some sort of questionable tag or not practicing early in the week, Friday is usually the last opportunity to prove that they have enough health fitness to be able to suit up and play in the game. So here's the one thing that stands out to me. Are you ready for Taysom Hill season? Because it's happening, and it's going to happen again here in week 2. Week 1, it was a Taysom Hill show. I think that video alone that I did prior to the season really kind of elevated this channel right out the gate, because I told you that you should pick up Taysom Hill as a fantasy football cheat code, the rare guy who I don't ever remember another player having quarterback and tight end eligibility, but Hill wound up paying off. He had something, I believe, 15 or 16 fantasy points. He had a 50-plus yard rush. He also caught a pass, ran for a touchdown, and now we have nothing but injury chaos for the New Orleans Saints this week. So Taysom Hill season 2.0 is going to happen again. You could bank on it, take it to the house. We're going to see a lot of Taysom Hill this Sunday, and with that tight end eligibility, he's proven himself to be extremely valuable already. Now, the reason why I'm once again high on Hill is because of the injury statuses of Jameis Winston and also Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. The most notable, of course, is Kamara. So Kamara suffered a rib injury in week 1. He was able to finish the game, but it clearly is not 100%. And that did open the door for Hill to get on the field and do his thing last week. Kamara didn't practice at all this week. Now, he's listed as questionable, but when a player doesn't practice the entire week, he's almost certain not to play. I'd be very shocked to see Alvin Kamara suiting up. And even Mark Ingram, his backup, is hobbled as well. Ingram also drew a questionable tag with an ankle injury. But even if Kamara sits, there's almost no chance in hell that Ingram is going to get the lion's share of touches. Why? Because Dennis Allen is no dummy. All right, he's a smart coach. He's been highly regarded for years, and he knows what he has in Mark Ingram, which is a former very good player who is clearly on the back nine of his career and doesn't offer much juice or any sort of ceiling to his game anymore at his age. Taysom Hill, on the other hand, has that allure, the speed, the power. He could throw it, he could run it, he could catch it. He's just a dynamic athlete that can be used all over the field in various different ways. And Allen, in what's going to be a very tough matchup against a brutal Tampa Bay defense, is going to pull out all the stops, and that means Taysom Hill. And I didn't even mention the fact that Jameis Winston is questionable with a back injury that he suffered in week 1. I think Winston's going to go, but this is a Tampa Bay team he used to play for. He might press a little bit. He's not 100%. This is a very strong Tampa Bay defensive line. And if Winston starts getting frustrated, that's when the turnovers happen. That's when he forces throws. So, and there's also no guarantee that Winston makes it through the game. And if he doesn't make it through the game, Okay, Andy Dalton could get in there, but what about, Taysom Hill taking some snaps? It is not out of the realm of possibility that Hill will take some snaps, in the backfield there if something were to happen to Winston. Even if Winston plays, if they're down near the goal line, Hill could be involved in multiple package, whether he's taking snaps, whether he's taking carries, catching the ball. We all saw it last week. He's very capable of that. And with tight end eligibility, that's huge. If Hill just falls into the end zone with a goal line carry, that's 6 points right there. That's like more than halfway there to what a usual standard tight end that's not named Travis Kelce or not named Mark Andrews is going to be able to achieve. All right. First question, Joe B. Would you start Hill over Ertz, assuming Kamara doesn't go? I think I would. The only issue, Ertz is going to get a lot of targets. I know you asked me this the other day. Ertz is going to get a lot of targets because this is an Arizona Cardinals offense that's desperate for receivers. Rondale Moore's not playing again. DeAndre Hopkins is still on suspension. So all things being equal, I probably still would go Ertz over Hill. But I wouldn't object to anybody that starts Taysom Hill. I think it's Taysom Hill season again. The fantasy football cheat code that he is, it's really going to be something to see, I think. You get him in your lineups. All right, so let's go through the rest of the injuries. Now, I posted this before. Justin Herbert has fractured rib cartilage. He's day-to-day. All right, so they're going to see if he's going to be able to practice next week. They have some extra time to get him ready. It looked scary when he went down last night, but was able to come back into the game immediately, threw 3 touchdowns. It was a backdoor cover delight. Anybody who bet on that game with the Chargers, Jesus, you went to bed happy because that was some backdoor cover. And the safer option would have been to go for the field goal and preserve time on the clock. But hey, you know what? Balls to the wall. They went for the touchdown. They got it. I don't think this is anything to worry about when it comes to Justin Herbert. He's very, very durable, very strong physical specimen. So I think he's going to be all right. And, really the whole entire offense hinges on it. Selim asked me, got Mixon, Gibson as running backs. Henderson is on my bench. Do I sub Henderson for Judy this week? No, you don't do that. You keep Jerry Judy in there. He's earned that right to be in your lineup every week with Russell Wilson. He had a very good game last week. I don't like Henderson as much as other people do. He was very inefficient that week 1 game. There's a cap on how many carries Henderson could take because of his smallish frame. So, and they do want to get Cam Akers back involved. So I don't think the ceiling on Henderson is as high as people think. And certainly that week 1 workload is not repeatable for Henderson because it's eventually going to catch up with him. All right, George Kittle, this was a surprise. So Kittle, who's listed as questionable, got into practice today. So Kyle Shanahan is calling him a game time decision. Basically, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch said the same situation was last week, and of course he didn't play. This one's probably going to go right down to the wire. I would say that make sure you have a solid backup in case Kittle goes, because this is as flip a coin as it gets. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get out there, but certainly week 3 is back, back in the realm of possibility. And again, with Kittle, he's just never healthy. That's 14 missed games now over the last 3+ seasons. The guy can't stay healthy. I never draft him for that reason. I want dependable players, and certainly George Kittle is not that. All right, Revelations asking me, oh, okay, thanks for the great content and constant update of fantasy news. Oh, you're welcome, Revelation. I appreciate that. I try hard. Some guy threw a dart at me with that Justin Herbert video I put out there. He says, how is this helpful? Well, I explained to him, I update injuries. Not every injury update has analysis or tips on it. If it's good news and the guy's okay, there's no need to talk about any fallout or any potential replacement. So, you can't please everybody, unfortunately, but I'm doing my best. And remember, if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, because I'm adding, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos every day. I have one on Mike Evans I'm going to post later as well, so make sure you look for that. Maybe tomorrow morning I'll post that. All right, Steve Drakes, do you think Mark Ingram is a safe pickup and start? I do not. Absolutely not. He's a wash veteran. He's going against a very strong Tampa Bay defensive line that might be the strongest in the entire NFL. I would not start Mark Ingram. And like I said, I think Taysom Hill is going to get more carries than people think because Dennis Allen is not a moron. He knows that Ingram has no electricity left in his legs, whereas Hill does. And he's going to have to pull out all the stops against Tampa Bay. Yes, you can't please everyone. You definitely helped me. So thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate it. The nice comments are really helpful. And also, if you can hit the like button, guys, that really helps me with the with the indexing of the channel too. And like I said, I just started this channel a couple of weeks ago. I did the website for 15 years of Fantasy Sports Boss. I thought this would be a better medium now. It's easier for me schedule wise. I do coach football. That's why some of the videos you see me in the car, before football practice, I do coach high school football. So I got a lot on my plate, but I do make time for this, and I enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy it as well. All right, Allen Lazard. This one is key for me because I have him in one of my leagues. Questionable for week 2. He was limited all 3 days of practice. I think he's going to go, but the problem is it's a late game, a Sunday night game. So unless you back him up with Sammy Watkins, which is scary, or even better, Christian Watson. It's a little dicey with Lazard. I think he's going to play. And I told you all the trade for Allen Lazard because I think Rodgers is going to pepper Lazard with a lot of targets. And also I told you to trade for Mike Williams. How did that work out yesterday? 8 catches, 113 yards and a score. And earlier today, I told you to trade for Juju Smith-Schuster. Go out and do that as well. I think Smith-Schuster is going to be fantastic the rest of the way. It was just simply a bad game yesterday. Derwin James was a menace all over the field. The Chargers defense is very good. They spent a lot of money on that defense, so I wasn't surprised that Juju did not have a good game. Neither did Travis Kelce, so it wasn't like it was just him. All right, so Allen Lazard, like I said, I think he's going to play, but back him up with Christian Watson if you have to. I wouldn't back him up with anybody on Chicago. I think Watson, if he has to go in there, I think now that he has a game under his belt, he might be somewhat helpful. All right, Chris Godwin rolled out with the hamstring. No surprise there. And just the fact that this went up until now, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's just to try to throw off New Orleans, but nobody expected Godwin to play. I certainly didn't. I'm a double Godwin owner. So this whole thing with Godwin is just pissing me off because he shouldn't have even been in that game last week, and he gets hurt again. As great as Godwin is, he just can't stay healthy. And it was just so goddamn frustrating that he got hurt again, and he's probably going to be out next week as well. But if he can come back, a week 4 – and be the facsimile of his former PPR stud self, then I'm good with it. You know what? It's an extra game. I really thought originally week 3 is when he would return. But if it's week 4, I'm fine with it. All right, L. Dot's asking me, I have Dak Prescott as my backup quarterback, as do I. Somebody dropped him in one of my leagues, and I picked him up and stashed him. Thinking about cutting him to free up a roster space. I'm out of IR slots. Wow, already, huh? Worth cutting him to pick up Curtis Samuel. Yeah, definitely. I would do that. I picked him up because it was free, and in one league that I'm in, we have I think 5 IR spots, so why not? But the thing is with Prescott, and I'm not holding my breath, is a thumb injury is a problem for gripping the football. We saw Russell Wilson struggle when he came back last season from a similar injury. So I'm not holding my breath. And this Cowboys offense is a complete wreck. The offensive line is a joke right now. Ezekiel Elliott's completely washed. They did nothing with Tony Pollard. If you're a CD Lamb owner, my condolences. But yes, I definitely would pick up Curtis Samuel. L. Dot, I'm surprised somebody didn't already pick him up because Ron Rivera is using him all over the field. He's like another Samuel and Debo in terms of running the football, also with a lot of targets. The offense for Washington looks like it's going to be a pretty good passing attack. We all know Carson Wentz sucks and he's a pain in the ass, but you know what? He threw for 4 touchdowns. We've seen glimpses of him play very well in the past with the Eagles, when he's not killing coaches. But I think that he's absolutely worth picking up. You should do that now before somebody beats you to it. All right, Steven Drakes wants to know, does Ekeler's stock go up because of his QB injury? Not necessarily. I don't think so. And as a matter of fact, I think it would go down because Herbert and him have a really good rapport. I posted that crisis point video on Ekeler last night, and I got a lot of feedback on that one. I did it at halftime of the game. And I even said, by the end of the game, maybe this video is going to be outdated and he's going to ball out in the second half. I wouldn't say he balled out. It was really the receptions that did it. He had 18 fantasy points. I think 14 of the 18 came through the passing game. The running game is a problem. The Chargers have a lot of injuries on the offensive line. Ekeler has not looked good in both games running the football. Sony Michel got a goal line carry, which is not what you want to see. This was the fear when Sony Michel was brought in. Was he going to be the goal line guy? Is he going to steal touchdowns from Ekeler? We all know the touchdown total from last season is not repeatable, but if Michel's going to be there siphoning off some scores, that's going to hurt Ekeler even more. And that's even before mentioning that Ekeler, with his smallish frame, you almost feel like every time he gets hit that he's not going to get up. That's the sense I get. And I owned Ekeler last year, and I loved every minute of it. But I just have a hard time believing he's going to stay healthy a second year in a row. All right, Hayden Hurst or Thomas Logan Thomas, in case Kittle can't play, drafted Kittle. He dropped to the 5th round, was best available. Yeah, I mean, you know how I feel about Kittle. I'm just not a fan of him. I would say Hayden Hurst over Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas is a good player, but there's 3 guys ahead of him target-wise. You can say the same thing about the Bengals too if T. Higgins plays, but I just think Hayden Hurst. I do trust Joe Burrow much more than I trust Carson Wentz, so I would go with Hayden Hurst there. Remember, keep posting your questions, guys, and also hit the subscribe and notification button. All right, Najee Harris removed from the injury report with his foot. Listen, I'm not going to go over it again. I can't stand Najee Harris this season. I wanted no part of him. I think he's going to be he's an injury waiting to happen with this Lisfranc in his foot. I'm not optimistic that he's going to make it through the season. Already the catch total per game is down, and it's going to remain down. Mitch Trubisky just doesn't shovel passes to running backs the way Ben Roethlisberger did. Nobody shoveled passes to running backs the way Ben Roethlisberger did. And that said more about Roethlisberger's declining arm strength than anything else. So, yeah, I see revelation. I stayed far clear of Najee Harris, and he even dropped to the 2nd round of one of my leagues. I wanted no part of it. I don't think Harris is going to go anywhere near those numbers that he had last season. All right, T. Higgins is expected to play according to ESPN's Ed Werder. Tragedy, he just lost his father, which, that's a terrible thing. He missed Thursday. There was some fear that maybe he suffered a setback on Thursday, but he had to attend the funeral for his father. So, certainly he'll have motivation to ball out this week, but that's secondary. He seems to be over the concussion. Wasn't as bad of a concussion as originally feared. So Higgins will be out there. I think against Dallas, he's a high-end wide receiver 2. Even in PPR leagues, he's a low-end wide receiver 1. So get Higgins back there in there for sure. All right, maybe premature trade Bateman for Juju. Oh, I would do that in a second. I'm glad you brought up Bateman, Selim, because I own Bateman in one of my leagues, and I was very disappointed in him. He only had a 67% snap share, which frightened me a little bit. You thought, okay, Bateman, he's the only target other than Mark Andrews. But listen, I did mention, and maybe I didn't even take my own advice or my own analysis, that the Ravens were going to go back to being very run heavy. And this is going to have a detrimental effect on Bateman. I would do that trade. I do like Juju. I had Juju ranked higher than Bateman. So if somebody's willing to trade you Juju for Bateman, I would do it. I really want to sit Bateman this week against Miami. I just don't like the way the passing game looks right now. I know DuVernay had 2 touchdowns last week, but I want to see more. I want to see Bateman get a better chemistry going with Lamar Jackson before I trust him again. Sean McVay said Van Jefferson because of his knee won't play in week 2 against the Falcons. So what does this mean? That means that Tyler Higbee is probably going to get a lot of targets again. He had 11 targets last week. It only came out to 8.9 points. It says more about the lack of athleticism for Higbee and his shortcomings physically. But the hope is that Allen Robinson is going to benefit finally. The Allen Robinson, man, he was a story. He was trending on Twitter Thursday night and into Friday because of the absolute dud. I mean, it was fucking horrible. Excuse my language, but there was just no other way to describe it. And I started Robinson in both of my leagues. I was as high on Robinson on anything. I refuse to think that I'm wrong about him. I thought he was a natural fit in this offense. You saw Odell Beckham come in and hit the ground running, turning back into a wide receiver 1 after languishing in Cleveland. That was the hope for Allen Robinson, who's very good at separation. He's still young. He's not even 30 yet. This is the key game. If he can't go off against the Atlanta Falcons, then I think we have a lot of trouble on our hands. I am starting Robinson again in both of my leagues, so maybe it's shame on me. You know how the saying goes, but I can't see him not contributing a decent game against the Atlanta Falcons, who just got torched by the New Orleans Saints. All 3 receivers on the Saints pretty much put up numbers. Olave, Landry, Michael Thomas, all 3 of them put up numbers. So I think he's going to be okay. I have Allen Robinson in a couple leagues, was getting him in 6th round. Yeah, I was getting Allen Robinson in the 5th and 6th round as well. I thought that was good value, but this is the key game. All right, Kadarius Toney hamstring. He's questionable. He was added Thursday, which is a problem. Midweek additions to the injury report is never good for a player. Listen, you got to cut Kadarius Toney outright. I said this the other day. This Giants coaching staff is no fan of Toney. They didn't draft him. There were whispers that they were trying to trade him during the offseason and into the NFL draft. Toney has really put off this coaching staff. He's got an alter ego. He's a rapper. And perhaps maybe that's distracting him too much, but he's been nothing but injured since the Giants drafted him. Perhaps the bad omen was that the reports that came out that Urban Meyer was desperately trying to draft him. Maybe that says even more about Toney, the player, but he just cannot physically get himself right. He even had COVID last year on top of all the soft tissue injuries. They're not using him at all. In the passing game, they used him on a couple of runs, but that's it. So if you're holding stock in Kadarius Toney, feel free to cut him loose. All right, Juan Trujillo is asking me, would you start Mike Evans or Renfrow? You got to start Mike Evans. Reputation alone, you start Mike Evans. But I do have concerns about Evans because of Mr. Marshawn Lattimore, who's been he's been owning Evans over the years, pretty much over the last 3 or 4 seasons. Whenever they play each other, Evans' worst games come against Marshawn Lattimore. I do think that Renfrow is going to be better, but I can't bench. It would be a ballsy move benching Evans for Renfrow. I think Renfrow will be better, but I want to see Renfrow put up a game with Davante Adams before I fully integrate him again. Listen, Adams sucked up all the targets last week, and Darren Waller is still there. So I want to see a little bit more out of Renfrow before I throw him back out there. All right, I know some people are dropping in. If you're just jumping into the stream, make sure that you put some questions in the chat. I'm answering live questions. That's part of the Everyday Football Friday. And hit the subscribe and like button if you haven't done so already. Wan'Dale Robinson is out week 2 against the Panthers, and this is a shame because I was really looking forward to Wan'Dale Robinson. He's been used as a gadget player almost in the backfield, out wide, in the slot. And this is a player that the staff did draft in the second round. I thought it was a little high to draft him in the second round. I had Robinson as more of a 4th round guy. But when a team is maybe over aggressive on drafting a player, it means they really like him and they're going to use him heavily. And I think that was the plan until he injured his knee last week. All right, speaking of Mike Evans, he's questionable with a calf injury. He practiced today. He's going to play. Evans is very tough. He doesn't miss games. He too has an history of soft tissue injuries, but he plays through it. The issue I have though is Marshawn Lattimore in coverage. He struggled against him more than any other cornerback in the NFL. The numbers back this up. It's hard though to bench Mike Evans if you have a top guy that you can put in, and I don't think Renfrow is good enough. I would do it, but it may not be a smooth ride there for him. And that means that Russell Gage and Julio Jones, who both practiced as well on Friday, and Jones had his own injury question marks this week, I think are that even more better starters. Now, I think Julio Jones certainly is a wide receiver 3 this week. You could put him in as a flex. With Chris Godwin being out, I think Jones has an opportunity here to really carve his niche into the offense. All right, Michael Pittman. This one scared the hell out of me because I own Michael Pittman in one league. He helped me win last week. He went out, he balled out, caught a touchdown pass. So I think Pittman, he's got a quad that he injured earlier this week. He's going to play, according to Frank Reich, or at least Reich hinted that he's going to play, which is big. But, it's a 1 o'clock game, so make sure you check in at 11:30 when the lineups are announced. If he does play, I think he's going to be fantastic. I've said from the beginning, I think Michael Pittman, right there with Stephon Diggs, right there with Davante Adams and Cooper Kupp, could lead the entire NFL in receptions this season. Eldad, I joined late, so hopefully you haven't covered this, but would you give up on Juju? He's been a bust 2 weeks in a row. I wouldn't say he was a bust 2 weeks in a row. Week 1, he had a very good first half. Yesterday he was a bust, but you know what, Eldad, so was Travis Kelce, and I own Kelce in a league, and I was disappointed to get only 10-plus points. The entire offense for the Chiefs kind of bogged down a little bit. I would not give up on him. I think better times are ahead. He's caught 90-plus passes twice in his career. I really like Juju this season, and I think that his time will come. Listen, they're not going to bowl out every game. Look at Mike Williams. Did nothing in week 1. He exploded in week 2. So I think that could happen with Juju as well. I certainly would not give up on him. All right, thoughts on DeAndre Swift? Yeah, that's a big one. So I didn't get to DeAndre Swift, but he practiced today. He is playing. He's got an injured ankle. Supposedly he played through the ankle injury last week as well. He went nuts, put up a huge game. So I would trust him this week. The one thing that's strange to me about DeAndre Swift, though, that doesn't get a lot of attention is that since the coaching staff, the offensive coordinator was changed out last season, his targets have shot down noticeably, sharply. So Swift was on pace for like an 80-catch season before he got injured last year. But when the change was made at offensive coordinator, his targets began to decrease. And even in game one, targets weren't very impressive. He did most of his damage on the ground in the running game. So, that's just something to pay attention to. I still think DeAndre Swift is an absolute running back one in PPR leagues. He just has to avoid these injuries that seem to plague him every year and are very frustrating. But again, you could say that about Aaron Jones. You could say that about Leonard Fournette. You can say that about any running back. But I think Swift is safe to throw back out there. Rondale Moore is out with the hamstring, second week in a row. Greg Dortch, if you really need a dart throw, I mean, he led the Cardinals in passing volume last week. Very disappointed in Marquise Brown. Perhaps Brown is still trying to pick up the intricacies of the offense, this Cliff Kingsbury offense. Maybe it's not the easiest system to learn. That could be why he failed to break through last week. I'm willing to give him another try. As a matter of fact, that's another guy I'm trying to buy low on is Marquise Brown. I haven't done a video on it, but Marquise Brown is somebody I would attempt to buy low on because he's just too talented not to go nuts in this offense, this pass heavy Arizona offense. All right, Damian Williams is ruled out for week 2 with a rib injury. So Avery Williams or the rookie Tyler Allgeier will get more work this week, but Cordero Patterson is really the only guy I would be interested in fantasy-wise in this backfield. And Cordero Patterson played great last week, but just like Darrell Henderson, you're gonna have to pay the injury piper soon enough. When these guys who are just not used to these high amount of touches or carries, like Cordero Patterson, like Darrell Henderson. So if you are a Cordero Patterson owner and he puts up a big game again this week, I absolutely would sell high on Cordero Patterson if he has another good start this week. And I think he will. I think he's going to get a lot of work. I think that he just being involved both, catching the ball and running the ball, the numbers should be there. And, listen, he was great the first half of last season before he tired out. I absolutely would start Patterson as a running back too, or even better as a flex. All right, if anybody watched the Commanders game last week, those linebackers are terrible. Swift is going to dominate out of the backfield if he's not limited by the ankle. Yeah, Joe B, you're right. The Commanders linebackers were just atrocious. The strength of that Commanders defense is the defensive line, although they've been dealing with injuries, nonstop injuries over the last couple of years. So yeah, Swift will ball out against anybody. He's just that good. But going back to college, he can't he can't go above a certain amount of carries before the trouble starts. One wants to know starting Higbee over Knox, hoping Higbee picks up a TD. He very well could. Yeah, you can't. I don't like Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox is way too touchdown dependent for me. So, I wouldn't even own him. If you got to cut him loose for like a Gerald Everett, who actually looks really good so far, I would do that. Or an Albert O. Feel free to do that because Knox is just too touchdown dependent. And I don't have patience for guys like that. All right. Hey, Brett, do you think Singletary is good for flex? I think Singletary is good for flex. He played well last week, Singletary. I believe he averaged over 6 yards per carry. Might even have been as high as 8. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But the dreaded committee reared its ugly head, and that certainly capped Singletary's numbers. I think this Buffalo staff was maybe just trying that out last week with Cook as well. But the Singletary is the best one of the bunch, and it would be coaching malpractice if they didn't give Singletary more opportunities this week. And yes, as a flex, he works good. As a running back too, not so much. All right, Mac Jones dealt with a back injury, dealt with an illness. He did practice Friday. He should be good to go. He's going against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that can get after the quarterback. So, that's a little concerning. But honestly, if you're starting any New England Patriot, I think your team is in trouble. Ramondre Stevenson, we all like Ramondre Stevenson. I still like him. Perhaps Ty Montgomery getting injured and being out for the next 4 weeks, maybe that will spark and get Stevenson on track. That's the hope. Don't even think about dropping Stevenson yet. because I think that Belichick is going to figure out a way to use him more, which he should. There's a lot of potential there. All right, who would you start at flex with the following options? Allen Lazard, Michael Carter, or Curtis Samuel? I wouldn't start Michael Carter. The Jets suck. I mean, they really do. They're not going to throw it as much. Those receiving totals from Breece Hall and Carter were inflated because Joe Flacco threw 53 passes. That's not going to happen again this week. I would go with Curtis Samuel. I'm not picking, even though I told you to trade for Lazard, the Sunday night thing and the fact that he's questionable scares me just a little bit. So I think the safer play is to go with Samuel. And listen, if he can build on what he did last week, even better. I mean, that was a wide receiver one performance that Curtis Samuel put on last week. And if he can do that again, then you really have something there. You think Khalil Herbert is better than David Montgomery and can overtake him, become the number one back for Bears? Oh, absolutely. I think Khalil Herbert is miles ahead of David Montgomery. I think I could beat David Montgomery in a race, and I'm older than you probably think. So it's got to stop. I mean, he averaged less than 2 yards per carry last week. I know the field was a mess, but Herbert dealt with the same field and he ran well, and he got the rushing touchdown there. Herbert's the better player, and I think this coaching staff in Chicago, they're new. Maybe you want to give the veteran Montgomery the benefit of the doubt. The Herbert's the way to go, and I picked him up before the game started last week in the running back handcuff strategy that I told you all about, and it worked out well. I still have him. I didn't drop him. I had also picked up Jeff Wilson. We'll see how Wilson does this week. I'm curious how Shanahan is going to divide up the carries there in San Francisco. Yeah, definitely Samuel for sure. All right. What was some of the other injuries? So Teakins, we talked about more. All right. So yeah, this was interesting. So the Denver Broncos, they report today, the Athletics' Nick Kosmider, I hope I pronounced that correctly, said that Javonte Williams will continue serving as the Broncos pass catching back. Hey, listen, if Javonte Williams can be as heavily targeted as he was last week, holy shit, we got like a high-end running back one. And if anything were to ever happen to Melvin Gordon physically and he misses games, you have a top 5, maybe even top 3 fantasy running back. If Melvin Gordon is not with the Broncos next year, and I don't think he will be, and let's say they don't bring in another complimentary back, Javonte Williams is a top 5 fantasy football pick next year. I don't think there's any question that will be the case. He is a tough runner. He's got good speed. He can catch the ball. He can do it all. And I think this Nathaniel Hackett realizes what he has and is going to continue to feed him. I feel borderline disrespected. This guy just offered Christian Kirk for Gabe Davis. Am I crazy? You feel disrespected that he offered you Christian Kirk for Gabe Davis? I don't think that's a crazy offer. I think it's a wash. I like Christian Kirk more than most people. Gabe Davis is the number 2 wideout in Buffalo, whereas Christian Kirk is the number 1 wideout in Jacksonville. Both are passing offenses, so it's not a bad offer. You really don't have a reason to do the deal. I would stick with Gabe Davis. I wouldn't do it because I do like Davis slightly more than Christian Kirk, but it's not an insult. I don't think that's an insult. I think it's fair enough because Kirk is going to get so heavily targeted as the Jaguars. It is a wash as the Jaguars trail in most of their games. Revelation. I was getting Javonte end of the second round, beginning of third round. Oh my God, what a steal that was. And you know what? I didn't get him in either one of my leagues. I had the top pick in one league, so I knew I wasn't going to get him coming back at the end of the second round. And in the other league, I had the 4th pick, and I took Justin Jefferson in the first round. And then when it came back to me, I missed him by 2 picks. It went Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones, and then I ended up with Leonard Fournette. So I was that close to potentially having the running back 1 this season. And yes, running back 1 is within the realm of possibility for Javonte Williams this season. All right, choose one for flex, standard scoring. Oh, standard scoring. Why would you play in a standard scoring league? Dillon, Melvin Gordon, Wilson Jr., or Taysom Hill. All right, just one, huh? A.J. Dillon. I'm going A.J. Dillon. I really like A.J. Dillon. He's going to get a rushing touchdown this week. The Bears' defense sucks. He's going to be – I already said A.J. Dillon is just so much a better value than Aaron Jones was. Jones as a second-round pick. A.J. Dillon as a late 4th rounder. So I definitely would go A.J. Dillon there for sure. I don't think there's any question about that. So the other thing I wanted to mention, about the handcuff running back strategy is, why wouldn't you do it? If you have the extra roster spot or two, pick up the potential handcuff running backs for the 1 o'clock games, drop them before the 4 o'clock games begin if the starter stays healthy, and then just repeat the process. So last night, for instance, you could, if he was available, you pick up Isaiah Pacheco and you hold on to him. If CEH makes it through the game, great. Then you just drop him. 1 o'clock games come along, pick up another handcuff back, and so on and so forth. That's how I ended up with Jeff Wilson last week. That's how I ended up with Khalil Herbert. And I still have them because Elijah Mitchell got hurt, and Khalil Herbert looked so much better than David Montgomery that I think he's going to be the guy. Eno Benjamin, that's the handcuff to target this week. James Conner, he's going to get hurt. It's only a matter of time. He's never made it through a full season healthy. You could even go back to his Pittsburgh days in college. Same situation. I would pick up Eno Benjamin because he looks pretty damn good himself. He catches the ball well. Catches the ball very well. He's got good speed. He can get to the outside. So if James Conner gets hurt, you have Eno Benjamin sitting there on your bench, and you don't have to fight anybody at waivers. So this is a strategy. I don't know why more people don't do it. It might earn some score in your league. People, that's bullshit. You can't be picking up. Yeah, if there's no waivers, it's absolutely legal. You can do it. It's a New England Patriot thing, I guess. If you want to call it that kind of a strategy, fine. But if it's not in the rule book, you can do it. And another thing I like to do too is, if I'm deciding between two players, and let's say my opponent has Justin Herbert, right? And I'm deciding in a deeper league between Joshua Palmer and DeAndre Carter. All right. Excuse me, not DeAndre. Two, they're from the same team. So I don't know. Joshua Palmer and Sterling Shepard. There you go. If I'm deciding between the two of them and my opponent has Justin Herbert, I'm starting Joshua Palmer. Why? Because in a standard PPR league, if a quarterback throws a 20-yard pass if Herbert throws a 20-yard pass to Joshua Palmer, you get 3 points for Palmer. 1 on the reception and 2 for the yardage, 1 point per 10 yards. A 20-yard pass for Justin Herbert to Joshua Palmer is less than a point because it's a point for 25 yards. So you win. If he throws a touchdown to Joshua Palmer, some leagues it's 4 points for the quarterback, some it's 6. For the receiver, it's always 6, and you get the point for the reception, and you get the yardage. If it's a 40-yard reception, you win. So when you're trying to break a tie between players, if your opponent has a quarterback and you have the receiver of that quarterback, you go with that receiver. This week I'm playing Kyler Murray. I have Zach Ertz. I'm going to start Zach Ertz in my flex, even though I have Travis Kelce, because I think Ertz is going to get a lot of targets. My opponent has Kyler Murray. If Kyler Murray throws a 40-yard touchdown pass to Zach Ertz, I know it's never going to happen because Ertz can't, will never make such a big play at his age. But let's just say it does, then great. I get 6 points on the touchdown. I get another point for the reception. That's 7. And then I get 4 for the yardage. That's 11. So a 40-yard touchdown pass from Kyler Murray, you get 6 for the touchdown, or 4 even, depending on your league setup. And then less than 2 points for the yardage. So why wouldn't you do it? So that's another strategy. I like to think outside the box on these things. And that's always a good idea if you're trying to break ties between players. So, all right. I wanted to, by the way, guys, keep posting the questions if you need me to answer some more questions. And also hit that subscribe and hit that like button. Austin Ekeler. I touched on this earlier in the show. It's not that I have to explain this with Austin Ekeler. It's not that I don't like Austin Ekeler, the player. I really do. I just thought that the number 3 overall pick for Austin Ekeler this season was just way too high. I mean, Jonathan Taylor was deserving of number 1. Christian McCaffrey, for all of his injury history, he's a robust monster PPR performer, no matter how you slice it. The number 2 spot, I understand that. But Austin Ekeler, with his smallish frame and his public desire to get less carries this season, I just thought it was an overdraft. There's no way he's seeing those touchdowns that he saw last season again this year. Sony Michel is around. And Joshua Kelly, you talk about a handcuff. I'm interested in Joshua Kelly. When I do the handcuff game next week, I'm going to look at Joshua Kelly, not Sony Michel. He actually ran really well. He has run well going back to the preseason. Isaiah Spiller, it looks like they they busted on that pick because Spiller has not been impressive. He's been hurt. He's allowed the Joshua Kelly to pass him on the depth chart. So I do have concerns about Ekeler. There's going to be more carries than I think we anticipate as the season goes on for Joshua Kelly because he's playing well. And Ekeler, at his size, is not a given to stay healthy for the second year in a row. I just can't see it. He was nicked up constantly last year. I think that he's going to be nicked up again this year. And as I also said earlier in the show, every time Ekeler gets hit, you almost have the sense that, oh, God, he's not going to get up. He's hurt, and yesterday too, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's another one. And I'll get to him in a second. So I do have concerns. The offensive line is now dealing with injuries. We've seen how ugly it's gotten in Dallas with the injuries on their line. You can't even start Ezekiel Elliott right now. You certainly can't start Tony Pollard. Obviously, we're not there with Austin Ekeler. And listen, if you want to try to steal him at a buy low, by all means, try it, because I think better days are ahead. He's getting the volume. He's getting the workload. He's getting the touches. But can he stay healthy? That's a question mark. Is Sony Michel going to steal goal line carries? That's a question mark. Is Joshua Kelly going to get more work? That's a question mark. So, and the offensive line has been so bad opening up holes, his average per touch is way down this season. So these are all valid concerns that I have about Austin Ekeler this season. So I really think that you got to think long-term with him. If you are an Ekeler owner, you can hold him, see if things change. I think they will. Like I said, I think ultimately he's going to be fine. But that number 3 overall draft pick, I think, was just a little too steep when it came to him. And honestly, if you didn't have the top pick this year, you should have just gone wide receiver. I mean, we've seen all the top wideouts ball out. Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams. They all went nuclear last week. That's just the name of the game with receivers. Less injury threat, more stable production week in and week out. And we saw it week 1. There was a lot of running backs that disappointed. Derrick Henry disappointed. Christian McCaffrey disappointed. Without the touchdown, he would have been a 0. Austin Ekeler, who we already mentioned, he was disappointing as well. So, these are things that we're going to have to think about next year when it comes to the draft. I'm trying to think about some other players. So Saquon Barkley, that was the other thing I was asked about on Twitter today about Saquon Barkley. Can he keep it up? I think he absolutely could keep it up. Brian Daboll knows what he's doing offensively. He's got a good coaching staff. He put a good staff together, Daboll. Barkley seems like a very good fit in this offense. The numbers certainly back that up in week 1. And ultimately, I think Barkley could absolutely put a monster running back 1 season together, especially in PPR leagues. Wasn't that long ago where we were taking him even first in drafts, certainly the top 5. And I think next season, if he keeps up this pace and just avoids getting injured, we could see that again. All right. Any other last minute questions? Make sure you post it in the chat. So as far as the rest of the weekend is concerned, more videos tomorrow. Obviously, not really injury videos since we're done with the week of practice. I do have a Mike Evans video I'm going to do. If there's any other ideas or any kind of other videos you want me to post, please feel free to ask me. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at RotoBoss. That's always a good idea to follow me there. And then Sunday's the key. If you're new, I'm watching all the games. As soon as somebody goes down, I have a video up within a couple of minutes. Actually, it's really within a minute. I have the injury video up, and I update it constantly throughout. And Sunday night, I'm going to do 7:30 this time. I did a 7 o'clock stream. It wasn't late enough because the afternoon games hadn't finished, but I'm going to do a 7:30 stream this Friday, and we'll go over all the action and whatnot. So, all right, I'm going to end the stream tonight, guys. You have a good Friday night. We will talk soon, and thank you for tuning in.